First story. I bullied a girl in high school. It's been 10 years, and my friend is dating her, so I demand her to move on. She sulked, so I bullied her again and told my friend to break up with her, as she isn't worth our time. I demanded him to continue our friendship, but he abandoned me, choosing his entitled girlfriend. This is kind of a weird situation, and I'm honestly not sure if I stepped over a line or if people are just way too sensitive these days. I'll give the context first, and then explain what happened recently. So I 28F went to a pretty average high school. Nothing fancy, just your typical small city school where people mostly stayed in their friend groups and didn't mix much. I'll admit up front, I wasn't the nicest person back then. I wasn't a full-on psycho or anything, but yeah, I picked on people. Looking back, I definitely bullied a few kids. It was usually just for laughs, nothing super calculated or evil, but I wasn't kind either. I wasn't walking around shoving people into lockers or stealing lunches or anything like that. But if someone cried when I joked about their outfit or called them names, I didn't really care. It was all about making people laugh and not being the butt of the joke myself. One of the girls I remember messing with was this quiet, awkward girl. I'll call her Emily, not her real name. She was super shy, wore oversized clothes, didn't talk much, and just had this energy that made her an easy target. I'd say things in front of other people like, "Do you own a hairbrush?" Or make jokes about how she smelled. I honestly don't remember if she did or not, it was just easy material at the time. And yeah, I did it a lot. Sometimes in the halls, sometimes in class. She'd get flustered or try to fire back, which made it even funnier to some of the people around us. I won't lie, I liked the laughs, I liked the power, and I didn't think too deeply about it. It wasn't until a few years ago that I even thought about any of that stuff again. Fast forward to now, I'm still in the same city, though I work in IT now and have grown out of most of the high school drama. I still have a few friends from that time, including one guy I've known since 10th grade. Let's call him Jake 28M. We've stayed in touch and hung out over the years, nothing romantic. Just the kind of old friendship that lingers even if you don't talk every day. A few weekends ago, I was invited to a party through a mutual friend. I wasn't planning to stay long, but Jake texted me saying he'd be there, and I hadn't seen him in a while, so I decided to go. The party was pretty chill, just some drinks, music, and people sitting around talking. It was one of those house gatherings where people rotate between the kitchen and the backyard. I got there maybe an hour in and eventually found Jake near the fire pit outside, talking with a few others. I hadn't met his girlfriend before, but when I walked over, he introduced us. The second she turned around to say hi, she just froze, like actual deer in the headlights freeze. She gave me this tight, polite smile and said hi in this clipped tone, like someone holding their breath. She avoided eye contact, made a couple of lines of weird small talk, and then said she was going to grab a drink and practically power walked away. I remember thinking, well, that was awkward, but I figured maybe she was shy or didn't like meeting new people. I didn't think much of it. After a while, I ended up talking to Jake again while she was inside, and I casually asked him, "Hey, is your girlfriend okay? She seemed kind of off when we met." He just shrugged and said, "I don't know, maybe she's tired or something." He didn't seem concerned, but I could tell he'd noticed it too. Anyway, about 20 minutes later, we were all back inside. I ended up near the kitchen island where people were gathered, and she walked by again. I figured, okay, maybe I should just clear the air and be friendly. So I smiled and asked, "Hey, did I say something weird earlier? You seemed kind of weirded out." She looked caught off guard, but stopped and gave me that same tight smile again. She said, "No, we actually went to school together." That's when it clicked. At first, I didn't recognize her. Like I said, back then she looked really different, super skinny, unkempt, awkward posture, barely spoke. Now she's got piercings, dyed hair, makeup, and a better sense of style. Plus, she's put on some healthy weight and carries herself differently. So when she said we went to school together, I actually laughed a bit and said, "Wait, really? Wow, I didn't even recognize you. You look totally different now with the hair and everything. And you've lost a lot of weight, right?" I wasn't trying to be mean, I was genuinely surprised. I thought maybe giving her a compliment would ease the tension or make her laugh. She gave me another one of those awkward smiles and nodded, but didn't say much. I didn't get what the big deal was, so I said something like, "You're not seriously still mad about high school, are you?" That's when things shifted. She didn't smile this time. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You traumatized me." It caught me off guard. I laughed a little nervously and said, "I mean, yeah, I know I was kind of a DCK back then. But come on, that was like 10 years ago. We were kids. People change. You've clearly changed a lot. I thought we could joke about it now." She didn't laugh. She just stood there, still looking kind of shaken. I honestly didn't get what was happening. I get that I wasn't nice in school, but traumatized. That felt like a reach. I was mean, yeah, but I was a teenager trying to fit in. At this point, Jake came over probably because he could sense something was off. He asked if everything was okay, and she just said, "Can we go?" But he looked at me and asked what happened. I told him we'd gone to school together, and there was some history, but nothing crazy. Then she turned to him and said, "She used to humiliate me almost every day. It was constant. I'd go home crying. I dreaded going to school." Jake looked at me, and I could tell something shifted in his face. Like something just clicked. Maybe she had already told him stories about being bullied in school, and now he was realizing who I was in those stories. I said again, "Look, I'm sorry if it was that bad for you, but I really think you need to move on. We were literally kids. Nobody's perfect in high school." She didn't appreciate that. She just stared at me like I'd said something offensive on purpose. Then she said, "You didn't just make a couple jokes. You singled me out. You made sure I never had a single day where I felt safe. It wasn't normal bullying. You got people to join in. You made it a game." I honestly didn't remember it that intensely. I remember teasing her because she reacted easily. And yes, I joked about her clothes and her hair and whatever else came to mind. But getting people together as some kind of coordinated effort, that felt exaggerated. I told her that. I said, "Okay, I teased you, but you're acting like I ran a campaign." That was apparently the wrong thing to say, because her face just dropped. Jake stepped between us a little, not in a dramatic way, but enough to make it clear this wasn't a casual conversation anymore. He told her again that they could leave if she wanted. She didn't answer him right away. She just kept staring at me like she couldn't believe I was real. Then she said something I didn't expect. "Do you even remember shoving my sketchbook out the bus window?" I legitimately didn't. I told her that. I said, "If I did, I don't remember it. I'm not denying it. I just don't remember." She looked almost disgusted at that point. She said, "That was the only place I felt normal. Drawing. And you just laughed and called it trash." I didn't draw again until college. Jake's whole expression shifted. He looked at me like someone realizing they're standing next to a live electrical wire. It was awkward as hell. People nearby were starting to notice the tension. This wasn't some private heart-to-heart. This was happening in the middle of a party with people pretending not to listen. I told her again that I didn't remember everything from high school and that she was acting like I had destroyed her entire childhood. I said, "If that one sketchbook mattered that much, you could have told a teacher." She said, "I did. More than once. You always denied everything, and I'd get told to toughen up." Then she said, "You didn't just bully me. You made other people think it was normal to treat me like garbage." At this point, I was getting irritated. I don't like being painted as some evil BTCH when we were kids acting like idiots. So I said, "You're acting like you never grew up. It's been over 10 years. You have a career now, a boyfriend, and a whole new life. Why would you keep carrying this?" She said, "Because some of us don't get to forget." That shut things down. Jake took her hand and said they were leaving. I said something like, "Come on, you're really leaving over high school." He turned back and said, "No, we're leaving because she's upset, and you clearly don't get why." Then they left. A few people asked me what happened, and I just said we went to school together, and she took things way too personally. Some of them just nodded because, honestly, most people don't want to get involved in anything emotional at a casual party. I thought that was it. But later that night, Jake texted me. It wasn't a huge paragraph or anything, but it wasn't friendly. He said, "I don't think you understand how bad things were for her. I'd appreciate it if you gave her space going forward." I didn't reply because I didn't know what to say without sounding defensive or dismissive again. And truthfully, I didn't feel like I owed a big apology for stuff from high school. People change. People grow up. Most of us did crappy things as teenagers. But then I started thinking about it more. And I realized she must have told him specifics I don't even remember. Maybe he didn't know it was me until he saw us talking. That would explain the way he looked at me once he connected the dots. It wasn't shock, it was disappointment. And annoyance. Like I should have known better than to just bring it up casually. I mentioned all this to another friend the next day. She told me, "You probably triggered the hell out of her." And when I asked how, she said something like, "If someone bullied me every day, I wouldn't want to hear them tell me I looked different or that I should get over it." But then another person I talked to said high school was a decade ago. And people who hold on to that stuff forever usually have other issues going on. To be fair, this is not the first time someone from high school acted weird around me. There were a couple classmates at our 5-year reunion who avoided me or gave me short answers. I always assumed they were socially awkward or just didn't want to catch up. Not that they still had baggage about things I barely even remember. I guess I always assumed we all grew out of it. I didn't think someone would be genuinely upset to the point of leaving a party over a conversation. And yeah, I was a jerk back then. But I'm not out here starting trouble now. I'm not rude to random people. I don't go around insulting coworkers. I just don't walk on eggshells around people, especially people who bring ancient history into adult life. If I'd said something mean about her now, then sure, I'd be the jerk. But reacting badly to seeing someone from school. I've had awkward memories come back too. But I didn't act like I was staring down the person who ruined my life. So now I'm here trying to figure out if I'm actually missing something, or if everyone is overly sensitive. I wasn't trying to mock her. I wasn't trying to bring up anything painful. I genuinely didn't recognize her. And when she told me she was traumatized, I honestly thought she was being dramatic because we were teenagers doing dumb teenager things. Jake hasn't spoken to me since. She obviously wants nothing to do with me. And I'm left wondering how much responsibility someone is supposed to carry for something when they were barely old enough to drive. Maybe I should have apologized more seriously. But part of me still thinks that at some point people need to stop letting high school dictate their adult lives. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm missing some huge piece of perspective. Or maybe she's exaggerating the impact because it fits the narrative she's built about her past. So, that's what happened. I don't think she should still be holding on to it. Ada? Comments. Comment 1. So I bullied you and made you very scared in high school, so what? What does it matter if I made your school life hell and was a giant to you? Besides, I didn't even recognize you now because you were so fat back then. What's your problem? Get over it. This is literally what your post sounds like, just stripped of the passive-aggressive phrasing and fake confusion. You minimized her pain, mocked her for looking different, and then had the audacity to tell her how to feel about trauma you caused. And then you wrote a whole post about it like you're the victim. Good Lord, I hope you don't ever have kids. Because if they end up being bullied, I imagine your advice would be, well, maybe they should just get over it, honey. YT 1,000 times. And you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you made her boyfriend uncomfortable enough to cut you off. That's it. You even say it outright. She looked upset. But it was a long time ago, so who cares? Plus, I love the part where instead of a real apology, you tried to bully her into forgiving and forgetting. Like that's not exactly the same SHT you pulled back then. You haven't changed. You've just aged. Comment 2. Massive YTA. But not for the reason you think. You're not terrible for being a SHTTY teenager, you're terrible because you're still the same person, and you don't even see it. You walked into that party like you were the same social ringleader you were at 16. You saw a girl freeze at the sight of you, and your first instinct wasn't, oh damn, maybe we had bad blood, it was, why is she being weird? That's arrogant as hell. Then you doubled down and asked her again in front of people. Then you commented on her body, weight you lost, is not a compliment, especially to someone whose whole identity back then was shaped by insecurity. Then you essentially gave her a TED talk about personal growth, while she was standing there reliving being cornered by you in the hallway. And for the record, saying, you should have told a teacher, is peak bully logic. Kids did tell teachers. Teachers rarely fixed anything. You know that. The part that stands out most is when you said people at the reunion avoided you, and you assumed they were awkward. Come on. At some point the common denominator is you. They didn't want to catch up because you were a menace to them when they were kids, and you clearly haven't developed the ability to read a room since. You don't need to spiral about being evil. You just need to accept that your instinct is still to minimize, deflect, and protect your ego instead of saying, wow, that sucked. I'm sorry. That's it. Until you fix that part of you, you're going to keep having these moments where people from your past look at you like you're a ghost they hoped they'd never see again. Comment 3. YTA for how you handled the conversation now. Look, plenty of people were arseholes in school. Fine. But the way you talk about it now tells me you haven't actually grown. You keep saying, I don't even remember half of it. Like that somehow makes it smaller. That's how trauma works. The person who causes it barely remembers. The person who lived it never forgets. You had social power. She didn't. You say you didn't lead campaigns, but she clearly remembers group bullying that you started. Your whole vibe at the party was basically, wow, you look different. Why are you still messed up about what I did? And then doubling down when she tried to explain it. That's where you lost any moral ground. Also, Jake's reaction wasn't touchy boyfriend. That was a guy realizing his partner just got dropped into the same dynamic she grew up terrified of, and he wasn't about to let you keep going. That's not being dramatic, that's being a decent partner. No one's saying you need to self-flagellate for teenage mistakes. But brushing off the impact you had and telling her to move on is genuinely SHTTY. You had one job. Damn, I'm really sorry. I didn't realize it was that bad. I won't bother you anymore. Done. Instead, you defended your reputation like it was a court case. You weren't being honest, you were being protective of the version of yourself you prefer to remember. Update. So here is the update. And before anyone comments again about self-reflection, therapy, or whatever else, I'm going to be clear. I'm not here to grovel. I'm here because the situation has now bled into parts of my life that shouldn't have been affected at all. After the party, I didn't reach out to Emily or Jake because I figured emotions were high and it'd blow over. Jake and I have known each other for years. We've had fights before and always moved on. I assumed this would be the same. I underestimated how quickly people form opinions based on one emotional moment. A few days later, something happened at work that honestly threw me. We were in the break room eating lunch, talking about weekend plans. One of my coworkers, Lindsay, walked in. Then someone mentioned the party because they knew our mutual friend hosted it. Lindsay goes really quiet and then suddenly asks, "Was that the party where you ran into Emily?" I didn't even know Lindsay knew her. I said yeah. And before I could explain anything, Lindsay straight up said, in front of 5 coworkers, "I'm not surprised it went badly. You were a bully back then." Everyone knew it. The room went silent. People stopped eating. I just stared at her because I never expected her to say something like that so directly. I asked her what she was talking about. She said, "You used to make Emily cry almost every day. You think people forgot?" I didn't even know she was there for half of that stuff. She was 2 grades above us. She must have just overheard things or seen something I didn't remember. But hearing her say it with that much certainty annoyed me. I said, "You weren't even around during most of that. Don't act like you know everything." She didn't back off. She said, "I know enough to say you haven't changed." Then she left. Just walked out like she dropped some moral bomb. After that, several coworkers avoided me the rest of the day. I've been at this job for years without issues. Suddenly a girl I barely remember and a coworker who barely talks to anyone get to define my character. Over high school. Whatever. I let it go. A few nights later, I messaged an old classmate, Sarah, someone I used to be neutral with. I figured maybe she'd give me a more level-headed perspective. I told her the situation, expecting at least a "you weren't that bad" or "high school sucked for everyone." Instead, she replied with, "I'm not surprised she reacted that way. You weren't kind to a lot of us." I asked her to clarify. She said, "You weren't evil, but you were sharp. You knew where to hit people. You said things that stuck." I genuinely don't remember ever targeting her. I even told her that, and she said, "You didn't have to target someone for them to remember to stay out of your way." So now apparently I was intimidating without even trying. How is that my fault? She ended the conversation with, "I hope you figure out why so many people keep telling you the same story." I blocked her. Not dealing with that. Then the social fallout started. Mutual friends of Jake stopped inviting me out. At first, I thought it was coincidence. But then someone told me straight, "It's awkward with Emily in the group now, so we're keeping things simple." Jake was the only one who still stuck around socially. Everyone else had distanced themselves months or years ago. He was the last one who consistently included me. He invited me to gatherings, checked on me, and treated me like a human instead of some exiled memory from high school. He'd stuck with me because he understood me, or at least tolerated the rough parts. But after the party, even he stopped texting as much. I finally reached out and asked if we could talk. He said sure, but the tone was different. When we met up, he looked tired. Not angry, just worn out. I told him, "Your girlfriend exaggerated what happened. She's taking it too far and dragging other people into it." He didn't like that. He said, "It's not an exaggeration if that's her experience. You don't get to decide how bad it was for someone else." I told him, "She's too sensitive. People go through worse things every day. She needs to move on. I lived through my consequences. I was treated like SHT at times too, and I didn't hold it against people my entire life." He said, "This isn't about you living through consequences. This is about you hurting someone and acting like it's her job to comfort you about it." That irritated me, so I went further than I probably should have. I told him, "Honestly, she's not worth the emotional energy. She's dragging you down with her issues. You deserve someone more mature. If you want, I can help you meet someone better suited for you." He stared at me like I'd grown a second head. He said, "Did you really just tell me to break up with my girlfriend? Because she doesn't like the person you were and still are. He raised his voice at me for the first time ever. People were looking. He didn't care. He said, "She's not the problem. You are. You're acting like the same person who hurt her. And you don't even hear yourself." I reminded him I'd always been real with him, never fake, and never pretended to be someone I wasn't. I told him he was my only real friend left, because he actually accepted me as I am. He said, "That's the issue. You think being accepted means never being challenged. Being your friend has felt like making excuses for you." That stung more than anything Emily said. I told him, "So you're choosing someone you barely knew 5 years ago, over someone who's been in your life since high school?" He said, "I'm choosing someone who's grown up." Then he added, "You can't treat people like props for your own comfort." He stood up, grabbed his jacket, and said, "Don't contact me for a while." And that was it. The only person still linking me to any kind of social group was gone. I'm not writing this to say I suddenly understand everything or feel guilty in some dramatic way. I still think Emily is exaggerating. I still think people should move on from high school instead of dragging it into adulthood like a pet trauma they feed every day. But the consequences hit harder than I expected. People believe her version, not mine. People let her discomfort erase me socially. And Jake of all people cut me off because I dared to say what everyone else was thinking. She's not worth the chaos she brings. I don't regret saying it. Someone needed to. But now I'm sitting here realizing that maybe everyone else really did rewrite the past, while I'm stuck taking the blame for being a teenager. Comments. Comment 1. Jesus Christ, you are spectacularly unaware. You honestly thought you could tell your only remaining friend to dump his girlfriend, who he clearly cares about, because you couldn't stand being reminded of what you did. And you still think she's the problem. You keep saying you lived through the consequences. But what does that even mean? That people avoided you at the reunion? That you lost a few invitations? That's not a consequence, that's natural fallout from being someone who makes others uncomfortable. You think consequences mean people should have to forgive you eventually. That's not how it works. Also, hilarious that you thought you were doing Jake a favor by trying to hook him up with someone more mature. Like your social awareness is so shot that you thought that was a reasonable solution. I'm honestly amazed he didn't just laugh in your face. Here's the brutal truth. You had one friend left because he tolerated you, not because you were some amazing ride or die. And the second he saw you hurt someone he loved the same way you hurt people back then, he was done. Comment 2. Reading this update, it's clear that every relationship in your life only works if you control the narrative. You get the last word, and you don't have to sit in discomfort. The moment someone tries to push back, even gently, you go nuclear or cut them off. You didn't value Jake as a friend, you valued him as a shield. Someone who would keep you socially afloat despite the fact that everyone else was quietly stepping away. You said it yourself. He was your only connection to a social life. And then when he finally set a boundary, you called his girlfriend too sensitive, tried to gaslight him about her trauma, and offered to literally replace her. Do you hear how sociopathic that sounds? You talk about how people should move on, but you haven't moved on at all. You're still the same girl who needs to be the center of attention, needs to be right, and needs people to forgive you on your terms. Jake was your last lifeline because he saw something good in you, and you made him regret that. Comment 3. The most insane part of your entire post is how you keep calling her immature, while you're out here demanding a man break up with his girlfriend because she had a trauma response to your own behavior. You seriously said, "She's not worth it. I can help you find someone better." Like you're some messed up guidance counselor from hell. Newsflash. Maturity isn't about pretending nothing ever hurt you. It's about setting boundaries with people who still think they're owed your forgiveness. Emily didn't bring chaos, you did. You confronted her twice at a party, commented on her weight, told her she should get over being bullied, then got mad when she didn't soothe your ego. And now you're pissed. Jake doesn't want to be friends with someone who tried to gaslight his girlfriend into reliving trauma like it was a sitcom anecdote. You think you're the grown-up in this story, but you sound like the kind of person who throws a tantrum because nobody clapped for your emotional development. Update. I guess it doesn't even matter at this point. But here's another update since clearly I've been labeled the RC hole, and I'm the only one telling my side. Spoiler, it got worse. Somehow. After Jake ghosted me, I figured whatever we'd cool off and eventually talk again. We always circled back. But weeks passed, then over a month, and nothing. That silence hit harder than I expected. I hate admitting that. He was the last person I thought would fold like everyone else. At work, things got weirder too. Lindsay, the same coworker who called me a bully in front of everyone, kept giving me looks during meetings, making little comments under her breath like, People never change when I'd speak. I'm not paranoid. Other coworkers noticed too. So I went to HR. Not to get her fired or anything, but just to let them know I was being harassed. Well, that backfired. HR sat me down and asked a bunch of questions about my behavior. Stuff like, have you had conflicts with other team members in the past? And, is there a pattern of social friction that might be contributing to this? Then they hit me with, multiple coworkers have mentioned you can be aggressive in tone or dismissive in group settings. Excuse me? I told them. I'm direct. I get SHT done. I don't sugarcoat. But apparently that's creating discomfort. So instead of them dealing with Lindsay, I got a condescending lecture about team dynamics and reflecting on personal responsibility. So FHR too. That's when I realized something. My rep is officially in the trash. No one invites me out anymore. Not even work drinks. It's like I got quietly exiled. I tried to fix that, texted some people I used to hang out with, and invited a few for dinner, casual stuff. No takers. Ghosted. One girl actually replied, it's just not a good time right now, which is social code for nope, never, go away. So I tried new people. I joined a local game night group that meets once a week at a cafe. Total strangers. Thought, okay, clean slate. They were nice at first. Polite. But by the third week, I could tell they didn't want me there. I talk the same way I always have, sarcastic, blunt, whatever. One guy started giving me these annoyed looks every time I chimed in. The organizer messaged me later saying the vibe wasn't working. I'm sorry. What the F is the correct vibe now? Do I need to speak in hashtags and whisper compliments to be accepted? I snapped. I cut all my hair off. Just sat in the bathroom one night, pulled it into sections, and chopped. Not for some fresh start bullshit. I didn't want to look like myself anymore. I hate it now, by the way. It's uneven and makes my face look harsh, and every time I look in the mirror, I hate what's staring back. I tried dating, apps, messaging. One guy was decent. We met up. It went well, I thought. Second date planned, and then nothing. Just stopped replying. This happened 3 more times. Eventually I asked one, was it something I said? And he goes, honestly, your name came up in a convo with a friend. I heard you have drama following you. Didn't want to get pulled into that. That was the tipping point. I messaged Jake. I figured, alright, maybe if we talk one-on-one without emotions running high, we can at least clear the air. I told him I wanted to fix things. I told him I miss him. I told him it felt like the world flipped on me, and he was the only person I thought would understand that. He left me on read for 6 hours, then finally replied, you haven't changed. You still talk about people like they're problems to be managed. I needed you to hear her pain, and you turned it into a competition. I'm not interested in fixing this. That was the moment I realized I was actually done. I'm not playing this game anymore. I tried. I said my piece. I made some valid points, actually. Emily is sensitive. She is dragging high school into adulthood. She is exaggerating her pain to manipulate sympathy. I don't care how traumatic it felt. She should have moved the F on by now. Everyone else did. I got mocked too. I got gossiped about. I got into fights. And I didn't turn it into a whole identity. If anything, she deserves more bullying. Not less. She's weak. She sucks. She weaponized her fragility. And now people orbit her like she's made of glass. Jake should have seen it. He used to like sharp people. Used to admire how I didn't fake it. But now he's curled up in victim culture like the rest of them. F Jake, F Emily. F friends who drop you because someone cries louder. I've got nothing left to lose, so why bother acting like I care? I've spent the last few weeks trying to figure out what makes someone like me so unlikable. I mean, I'm honest. I don't stab people in the back. I show up. I tell it like it is. That used to mean something. Now it just means exile. I'm not going to keep begging people to accept me. I'm not going to water myself down to get invited to bar trivia or goddamn potlucks. I'm a good person. I just don't smile when I don't feel like it. If that makes me evil, so be it. This is who I am. And if no one wants to be around me for that, that's on them. But don't expect me to disappear quietly. Comments. Comment 1. You were the dominant personality in high school. People laughed when you joked. They shut up when you stared. You got used to being the one who decided who was too sensitive or who needed to get over it. And now, people aren't playing that game anymore. And you hate that. That's why you're obsessed with Emily. Not because she ruined your life, but because she reclaimed her story and made people believe her. And you lost control of yours. You say you're a good person. That you're honest. But every time someone didn't react the way you wanted, you called them fake, weak, or dramatic. You didn't lose your social life. You lost your audience. And now you're flailing to find anyone who'll clap for the old act. Comment 2. You literally said, F friends, F Jake, F Emily, and then 2 lines later, I just want to be normal. I just want people to like me. Do you not hear yourself? You're not hated because of your tone or your haircut or your brutal honesty. You're hated because you blame everyone but yourself while expecting people to want to be around you. Also, telling Emily she deserves more bullying. Yeah, that's sociopathic. You want people to believe you've grown, but you're still clinging to this twisted belief that you're the real victim because nobody handed you the redemption arc you imagined. You're not a misunderstood loner. You're a bully who got cornered by the consequences of her own actions for the first time. And you're lashing out like a trapped animal. The scariest part, you actually think you're being real. That's what makes this so sad. And yeah, YTA, forever. Comment 3. You're giving off, I'm not like other girls rage, and why won't people love me when I'm mean to them? Confusion at the same time. And it's honestly hilarious. You cut your hair in a rage spiral, hate how it looks, scream, F Emily, F Jake, F the world. And then 5 seconds later go, why doesn't anyone want to date me? Like, ma'am, you sound like a walking Tumblr post from 2012. Your whole update is literally the emotional equivalent of writing, I hate everyone in Sharpie on your mirror, while crying to My Chemical Romance. You're not the main character. You're just mean and mad that no one wants to play your game anymore. Second story. My wife punished our son for correcting her, told him to shut up, and started neglecting him, favoring his siblings. She refused to apologize, and then demanded we ground our son whenever she felt like it. It disgusted me, so I told her I don't respect her anymore. My wife and I have 3 kids. On Thursday, my wife was helping our 9-year-old with her homework. She was supposed to fill in a chart with the times tables. That was a hectic day. Our 4-year-old threw up, and I was trying to clean him up, and my wife was having trouble getting our 9-year-old to focus on what she was doing because she kept looking at me. Our 9-year-old hates maths and is pretty bad at it, which annoys my wife, who is usually fantastic at maths. My wife asked our daughter what 7 times 7 was. Our daughter said she didn't know. My wife kept telling her to try to think of any answer. She kept saying she didn't know. My wife was getting frustrated. Our daughter finally guessed 37. My wife said, close, 47. Our 13-year-old then said, no, Mom, it's 49. My wife snapped at that point and told him to shut up and go upstairs. He went into the backyard instead. She took a deep breath and then went into our room. I finished with our 4-year-old and then went outside. I tried to talk to him, but he didn't want to listen. He kept saying, but Dad, 7 times 7 is 49. I told him his mom just got frustrated and didn't mean to yell at him. He kept insisting that 7 times 7 is 49, which I am aware of, so I got nowhere. I went back inside to talk to my wife. She said she knew she shouldn't have yelled. She said she was frustrated because he was distracting her, and that's why she made the mistake. I pointed out that she made the mistake before he said anything. She started crying and asked why I was being so critical. I apologized and told her I loved her. We hugged it out. But then I asked her if she was going to go and apologize to our 13-year-old. She said no, because he shouldn't have interrupted her. She said he was rude and needed to learn not to interrupt. I told her it's not okay to tell him to shut up. We went back and forth, and finally I said I won't be able to respect her as much if she doesn't apologize. That really hurt her. She said she needed space. She hasn't said a word to me or him since Thursday. I know that what I said is harsh, but I can't respect someone who won't apologize when they make a mistake. Am I the arsehole? My sister says I am because I'm not being supportive and our 13-year-old is a lot. Update. My wife got up before our alarm and started cleaning our bathroom. I started the laundry and made breakfast. She didn't say a word when she sat down to eat. She ate much faster than normal. She stood up, picked up our 4-year-old, and told our 9-year-old to get ready because they were going to the library. She didn't say anything to our 13-year-old. I told her we need to talk, and she shook her head. I followed her upstairs and insisted that we needed to talk. She just kept shaking her head. She went into our 4-year-old's room and locked the door. I went downstairs and told our 13 and 9-year-olds that we are going to the dog park. They both asked if Mum was okay, and I said yes, and that she needed space. I grabbed some clothes for our 9-year-old from the laundry room, and she got changed in the downstairs bathroom. We are at the dog park, and my wife is refusing to answer my texts. I'm starting to think this isn't about maths. Comments. Comment 1. I was a career teacher. I had a banner above my whiteboard that said, "Mistakes are to learn from." I taught my students to own their mistakes and look at them as learning experiences. Some of my most memorable moments as a teacher occurred because of mistakes. Mine and the students. Yes, I always owned my mistakes. Comment 2. A lot of people forget that adults aren't always right and children aren't always wrong. She needs to apologize for snapping at your child. OP. I told her that, but she said it has nothing to do with the math problem and that it's about his bad habit of interrupting. I think that since he was trying and succeeding, really to be helpful, that doesn't count as interrupting. Comment 3. Your wife absolutely owes the 13-year-old an apology. I don't see what he said as an interruption at all. She was teaching the 9-year-old the wrong information. It seems to me, your wife was just embarrassed and is now being very passive-aggressive by giving you the silent treatment. She is being emotionally immature and needs to step up and apologize. Update. TLDR for those who don't want to click. My wife and I were having a crazy week last week. On Thursday, she was helping our daughter with her maths homework while frustrated and overwhelmed. She gave our daughter the wrong answer to a question. Our son corrected her. She screamed at him to shut up. Afterwards, I wanted her to apologize. She refused, and I said that would make me respect her less. She gave both me and our son the silent treatment in response. Update. Yesterday, Sunday, my wife wanted to take the 2 younger children to the library. I tried to talk to her, but she locked herself in our 4-year-old's room. I took our older 2 children to the dog park. She took our 4-year-old to the library. At the dog park, I talked to our 13-year-old. I explained to him that a lot was going on right now and his mother was overwhelmed. I said that sometimes when a person is overwhelmed, the next thing that happens, good, bad, or neutral, is the thing that pushes them over, and the source of that thing, good, bad, or neutral, is what they lash out at. I said his mom was wrong to lash out at him, but it wasn't his fault, and she didn't really mean it. I said she was embarrassed, and that was why she was avoiding him. He said that wasn't fair, and we kept going back and forth. I was trying to help him understand he didn't do anything wrong and shouldn't feel bad, but all he could focus on was that he was being treated unfairly. I told him that it was unfair, but that his mom isn't perfect, and everyone makes mistakes. I said sometimes he is unfair, but we forgive him because we love him. I said forgiving his mom, even though she is wrong, would be a nice way to show his love for her, but that he doesn't have to. Again, he just said that the situation was unfair, which it is. It really is. After the dog park, I took our 13-yo to a friend's house and our 9-yo to a friend of mine's house. I went home and made dinner. However, my wife went out for dinner with our 4-yo, so she didn't get home until after I had put everything away. I told her that we had to talk now that the older kids aren't here and that not talking wasn't an option anymore. She still ignored me, so I said that if she wouldn't engage with me, I would have to call our sisters and get them to come over to help me. She got very angry, but she finally engaged. She told me that she is drowning. She said work is exhausting, and every day when she gets home her patience is already below 0. She is scared and upset by our 4-year-old's stomach issues. She said he threw up again at dinner. She really shouldn't have taken him out to eat, because we are supposed to keep track of everything he eats before throwing up or not throwing up before the appointment today, which is impossible to do at a restaurant. But I didn't mention that. She said she can't take our 13-year-old's behavior anymore. I said he didn't do anything wrong Thursday. She said that when we were that age, if we interrupted our parents to tell them they were wrong, we would have been punished severely. She said we raised a spoiled, entitled child. She said she can never get any peace and quiet in our own home that we worked hard to pay for because we have a spoiled teen that refuses to ever stop talking or making noise. I said we have been working on those behaviors, and he has been improving. But she lashed out when he was trying to be helpful, and that sends the wrong message. She told me that I am not supporting her. She said she needs things to change. She said we need to crack down and stop being so lenient. If he plays the recorder after we've told him he's done for the night, we need to take it. If he interrupts, he needs to go straight to his room. If he argues about curfew, he needs to lose privileges. I told her we need to take a step back. I said if she is overwhelmed, she needs to take a break. I told her this heightened emotional state is a bad time to make huge household changes. I suggested, like many commenters did, that she get a hotel for a few days and decompress. She said she's not the problem. I didn't say she was, and he is. She said he was bad from the beginning. She said when our daughter didn't have all his issues, she thought it was because she is a girl. But our 4-year-old is a boy, and is also better behaved, so he is the problem. She also said I've always seen it and used to admit it, but stopped to make her look crazy. For context, I used to joke that our 13-year-old is a changeling, because he likes to be outside so much, loves animals, and loves playing on his recorder. I want to stress that this was a joke. The reason I stopped making this joke is because I noticed my wife didn't find it funny anymore. This was years ago anyway. I said all that, and she said no, that I saw even then that he is wrong, but stopped acknowledging it to make her feel like the problem. She also said she has been seeing an online therapist. I had no idea. She said she didn't tell me because she was embarrassed. Her therapist told her that our son has dangerous tendencies and shows signs of being contemptuous towards women because he doesn't respect his mother. I had no idea how to respond to that. I said any therapist who would say something like that about a child they've never met shouldn't be licensed. And if it's an online therapist, for all she knows, they aren't. At the end of our conversation, she agreed to go to the hotel, only if she took our 4-year-old with her, because she wanted to be the one to take him to his medical appointment. I didn't think that was a good idea at all. However, she ended up just taking him and going. I picked up the kids and brought them home. They sensed that something is wrong, and were very subdued this morning getting ready for school. I talked to my boss when I came in, and he is going to let me leave early to go to our 4-year-old's medical appointment. I am not sure what will happen there. I am hoping it will be good news, and that will make us all feel less on edge. Comments. Comment 1. You've correctly flagged that the online therapist is a quack. My recommendation is to ask if you can join a session to evaluate them yourself, and also get their info so you can look them up. If the therapist brings up negative points about your kid, deconstruct those in front of your wife. Your wife needs real help. She's displaying extreme anger towards your son that is clearly deep-rooted. She does need a break, so try and organize that for her and your son. Maybe have all the kids out of the house for a while once the 4-year-old's gastro passes, and then reassess. Every parent goes through periods of depression, but the extreme nature is not healthy and can't continue. Your wife clearly doesn't have the coping skills to deal with this and needs better tools. Good luck. Comment 2. NTA. If your wife is locking herself in your child's room, screaming at the kids to shut up, being malicious towards your teenage child, and refusing to talk, this is a much bigger issue. At a minimum, counseling will be necessary. There may be some other mental health issues at play too. OP, be prepared to defend your teenage child when things really hit the fan with the wife. That day is coming soon. Comment 3. The fact that she is blaming your son for basically existing and being a boy is extremely concerning. I used to work in child protection, and I had a mother who was like this. I sat through a meeting with her and her son. She sat there stone-faced while he sobbed and asked her over and over why she couldn't love him. What your wife is doing is emotionally abusive. Get her some help before your son is irreversibly traumatized by his mother. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.